Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Blue Abroad YouTube channel with another episode of The Rest. I'm your host, Aris Matakos, and we are joined back by Terry Degani. Had an absence last week, but you're back this week, so that's good to see.
Man, it was a nightmare last week, internet issues and the like, but we are back. We are
Yeah.
6-2, and we are in that top four.
This is the first rest with Carlton being in the top four. We're walking a bit higher, chest out, shoulders back. Feels good.
Yeah, it does. It's an enjoyable time to be a Blues supporter, but we are here to talk about the rest today.
Yes, I know. There's not many of them better than us at the moment, but we'll talk about them nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just get straight into it with some news that broke, if you can call it news, that broke today. And it was that Jason Horne-Francis has put his contract negotiation on hold with North Melbourne to re-sign. And I don't really want to speak about that in particular because I don't think that's newsworthy, like in terms of because he's still got a year left. It runs out at the end of next season, right? But I just want to speak about why does this get so much fanfare? And I've got a couple of questions. And the first one is, do we overhype some young players in the league based on draft picks or whatever?
I think we do, and I think there's a reason for it. I think, especially when you're talking about teams that are on the rise, you want to build hope, and you want to build energy, and you want to, in the media's case, create engagement. And the most exciting part about footy is, well, one of the most exciting parts about footy is the young crop that come through. For us, we definitely overhyped Cripps early in his career, and he obviously matched the hype and probably beat the hype as well. Sam Walsh was another example of someone that we really hyped up, and early in his first season, it was all about, is he having the best season ever for a first-year player? And he ended up continuing on with it. And I just think we just do it because, it's the future and you can play on the imagination.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of needed in a way. Like I say needed, but I don't like how we put hopes on these 18-year-old kids coming out of high school and like expect them to be the next big thing and expect them to carry teams, etc. Right? Because we see Horne-Francis, he was touted pretty early the year as like the guy in the draft, and he's come in and he's played well. He's played okay in a below par team, but and I don't want to sound too critical because I know he's played 8 games of footy, right? But with all the hype that was with him before he got drafted and even after he got drafted during like coming up through preseason, it's just, I feel like, put him in a very difficult position when everything he does is in the spotlight and everything he does is dissected. I mean, like we're doing now pretty much, right? But everything that he does is now put under the microscope when it's not even news. Like what he's doing, he's just not talking about a contract that's expiring in 18 months now. Like he'll probably do it at the end of the season and nothing's happening. And nothing will happen, right? But I feel like we are putting too much pressure on these kids to make sure that they get every decision right, and everything they do, every decision or every non-decision is ridiculed or put under the microscope or talked about for hours and hours. I just feel like there's just something wrong. I don't know exactly what it is, but it doesn't sit right with me that the reaction to things happening with these first-year players.
Man, I think you're spot on. I think what we do is, if you look at the cycle of a player, and this is just very anecdotal and it's on average, if you look at the cycle of a player and how they are reported in the media, you have, before they become a star, and we put them on this pedestal, just hype them up, compare them at this point in their career to other players, other superstars. And then they get to this point where they're just in their careers. They're after, their 3rd or 4th season. They're in that period between season 3 and season 6 or 7, and they kind of have that window of opportunity where they're not making headlines. They're not playing poorly, but they're just not making headlines. And we almost put them up on a pedestal just to break them down a bit. And then they almost seem to break through that and come back up at the end of their careers when they've played 10, 11, 12 years, and we start calling them champions and all of that. It's a really weird cycle that we go through. And Horn Francis is definitely one. I mean, I think his whole draft, you look at Dacos, obviously the hype is there and the hype is
Yeah.
real. But Horn
Yeah.
Francis seems to be an interesting one because like he's a good player. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, he's a good player, but he's not Sam Walsh. Like
No,
he's
he's
not,
definitely not.
you
There's
know,
not a
like
lot that are.
yeah. I mean, look, it's going to work in his favor because
Yeah.
he's going to be able to attract a big contract, and part of being the number one pick is you have this expectation, and every year there is that same expectation on the number one pick, but every year the number one pick doesn't necessarily live up to it.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like I remember Jack Watts. That's the classic example. I mean, good footballer. Just
Yeah.
because he went pick one, people expected him to be breaking records and be the next Revo. It's just tough. It's really
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. I think what you touched on before almost goes back to that tall poppy syndrome, which I think this country is one of the biggest offenders of that ever, right? In
Number
like,
one.
yeah, it's something that's ingrained in the media and even our just society itself, right? So I feel like one way to get around that is just by relaxing expectations. Because if you build someone up and then they don't achieve it, even though they're still like what Horn Francis is doing, he's still good. Like he's still playing well for what he is as a first year player. Yet we're still cutting him down and not focusing on the good things about his game. We're focusing on like his spat with Silvani and these contract talks and etc. etc. And I want to move on slightly from what we're just talking about and move on to because he's a South Australian boy, right? He does, and obviously you have the term which is on every fan's footy bingo card when it comes to the off season and the trade period is the go home factor, right? Is that a bigger thing? Like, do we overrate that or underrate that factor and what that means with people wanting to go home?
I feel like it's a real thing for Victorian teams
So, as in
and
like
Melburnian
moving
teams.
interstate.
Yeah. I mean, let's take Corey Durden as an example, right? He's from Adelaide. He wanted to play in Victoria. All footy players want to play for a Melbourne. Not all. I would guess most
Yeah,
or more players want to play and get drafted to a Melbourne-based team than not because of that MCG factor, because of that ability to play in front of the big crowds. But I don't know. I mean, once you become an adult, like, does the go home factor really matter? I mean, I know we had COVID and that really shook some people up with illnesses and whatnot. We know Adam Chera came back home and he cited, wanted to be closer to his family. I think every situation's different. Every family is different. Every relationship with one's family is different. But I mean, Horn Francis, isn't he the big tough, leader? Like he doesn't need to go home. Like he's strong and tough, and he's a big boy. He's got big bad Nick Larkey in the forward line with him. He doesn't need to go anywhere.
yeah, he's got his protection. He's got his bodyguard.
Couldn't go 9 minutes without mentioning
No,
Nick Larkey's name.
couldn't. Do you have the clip on? Do you have the clip handy by any chance? Or?
I don't actually. I do, but I don't want to play it.
Fair. Yeah, overused. That's right. I feel like it's a thing with younger players, especially when they move. I feel like I actually would disagree with you in that sense of players when they come to Victoria. I feel like I would have to disagree. I would say people playing in Victoria who aren't from Victoria have more of a sense to go home. I feel, and I feel like that would make more sense. I don't know why. I just feel like because Victoria is almost a bubble in terms of the footy, like the media and stuff. It's so much. It's amplified because it's the central. It's like the central point of footy, right? So everything is amplified. Whereas if they go back home, that can be a lot more under the microscope, or like so not under the microscope, under the radar, where they can just like hide a little bit in some senses. And and what I just touched on before about the young players, you look at people like Jack Lukosius, who there's rumors of him coming home, and I do feel like if they can get over it within 2, 3, 4 years of them being drafted, there's less of a chance of that being a thing. But I do think, I mean, I know, yeah. Personally, I think it's a risk say you're a Victorian drafting a person from WA or South Australia because of that factor. I do think, especially if they're highly touted, teams will be wanting to go after them. I would lend myself. Oh, I would tend to agree with the fact that Victorian clubs should draft Victorian players to mitigate that factor. Would you agree, or do you think it doesn't matter?
No, 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 no. Totally disagree. Because if you are a well-run organization with a good culture and a good environment, which will cater to what the players need, which will give them opportunities, which will allow them to really flourish and become, good, well-rounded humans, then you shouldn't have that much to worry about. Now, North Melbourne,
Yeah, I know.
they're not one of those clubs. They're just not. Not right
Yeah,
now. They're building in other ways. We're very fortunate to be in the position that we are. We're a big club. Even when we're at the bottom of the ladder and when we're not good, we still have a lot that we can do for players both on and off the field. I'm just trying to think how many players have teams lost in the last 3 seasons to the go home factor?
well,
As
not.
in leaving Victoria, going back to the interstate. I'm trying to think. Um,
Well, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Hmm.
So
I feel like it's reduced than what it used to be. I feel like it's gotten
I
better.
I, I I would potentially disagree in
But
terms
who?
of.
But
Yeah,
who? Who?
I can't think of who. So I am. My logic is probably flawed, and I'm willing to hold my hands up if I am wrong based off the stats. But I just feel like as the generations go on, I do feel like we're getting more. We don't want to leave our comfort zone as the generations go on. I think so. Like obviously I'm 18, so when the next crop of 18, 17-year-olds get drafted, I feel like everyone's going to want to be more comfortable in themselves and comfortable where they are. They don't really want to change. I know obviously there's exceptions to every rule, right? But I feel like this will only become stronger, this go home factor, because of the way society's going. Do you
You
agree in the
think it's a
fact that
generational thing? You think that the way in which we're developing, which is a bit different to what we used to be, means we're going to see more because of that. We're going to see more go home factor
yeah,
players.
yeah,
I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
well,
we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Because obviously the last 2 years, COVID and all of that, it's really shaken people up. It's really shaken people's development. People have been locked up at home and all of that. And I do wonder what the result of that will be. Horn Francis is a very well-known Adelaide
yeah,
prospect. I'm sure North Melbourne would have done their full due diligence and made it really clear, like, are you a chance to go home and
yeah.
that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's a tough one, but I don't know. My perception of it is that it's not that big a deal. It's just not. I don't know.
No, so if, I mean, question without notice a little bit. If you were given two players in the draft, say for Carlton, right? You have player A who's 5% better than player B, same position, everything's identical, but player A is from WA and player B is from Victoria. Would that take anything into account,
Well,
regardless
WA
of?
is an interesting one because we've got Patrick Cripps, and like he's a W.
Well, yeah.
You
I
know what I
mean,
mean?
there
Like
is that thing of if Cripps
we're in a
goes,
good
Fisher goes. So
situation that we've got a couple of like Patrick Cripps from WA. We've got a couple
yeah,
from interstate that can really help with that. But if we didn't have players from WA, and the reason why I bring that up is because they will have gone through what
yeah,
a draftee is about to go through, so they can talk them through and guide them as to what's being experienced. Would I be inclined to go for the local homegrown? Probably, but by much, probably not. I mean, I've got full faith in our club personally. Like I said, we're lucky where we've got all the resources, and like, who wouldn't want to play for Carlton
yeah,
coming up?
you're right.
You
Yeah,
know what I
and
mean? Like, I just think it depends on the club.
yeah, I mean, you look at, I mean, Port Adelaide is probably the best example of a club with rich history that's not in Victoria. Whereas you look at Gold Coast, for example, it is almost comparing apples and oranges by that stage, because Port Adelaide are a club. They're a proper club with history
Mm,
and years of success, whereas Gold Coast aren't, right? With all due respect. So
of
yeah, I
course.
mean, I think you are right in terms of depends on the club, but it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not exactly sure which out of contract players come the end of the season are going to want to go back home, but I guess we'll
Well,
have to wait and see.
I think COVID has also halted a lot of that. But then if I'm just trying to think before COVID, a lot of the go home factor was people coming back to Victoria. Like if you look at O'Meara, Taylor Adams, Treloar, Tom Lynch, Stephen May. Years before that, we had like the Doherty, Polek, etc. Probably should have done some research before this, but I think we'll see in the next couple of seasons. But just from my memory, it's been mostly people coming back to Victoria or moving to Victoria.
You're probably right, and it's probably. You probably are right. There's just something logically which states you'd want to if you're not from here, you'd want to leave because of. I know obviously Melbourne probably has one of the better lifestyles out of the rest of the states, right? With all due respect, but I just feel like if you're not from here and you haven't grown up with footy being on 24/7 everywhere, it could get a bit hectic from someone growing up. I mean, I can't imagine how hard it would be for Cripper coming from a country town in WA and then moving to Victoria where it's footy left, right, and centre 24/7 all year. My logic to me dictates that would affect more people than it would.
Just depends which logic you follow, I guess.
Yes, I mean, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see because it's going to be an interesting trade period, I reckon.
Well, this is the hard part too. If Lukosius leaves, if Horne-Francis leaves, then the discussion, like, how can you equalise that? It just is what it is.
I don't think you can't.
That they are clubs that are just not able to retain players because they're not big enough. Like, you can't put measures in place to punish teams like us and Richmond because of it. Like, I think there's a fairy tale somewhere that, of equality. And the sooner we realize that the world's not equal, the better we can navigate it.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. I do think it's going to be a thing, regardless of it being like really intense or ever so slightly or like minuscule. I do think it's going to be a thing, and it's almost impossible to stop it. I mean, I can't think of anything that you can put in place to mitigate that.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's enough of that talk. Let's move on to the actual footy, and let's actually go into state and talk about a team that has come on the rise in recent weeks and a team that you're ever so smug about. Port Adelaide. Now,
my boys. The Port Adelaide power. My boys.
Yes. So I put a question down on the run chat. Did we as a footy community overreact to their poor start to the season?
You all did. All of you. all of
us.
Don't look at me.
You did it.
No, we didn't overreact. But maybe we did. Maybe we did in the whole, they've got to start again. They've got to get rid of Ken. They may still get rid of Ken at the end of the year. But, footy's a funny game. And 5 rounds to start the season is 5 rounds. But the cream rises to the top. You look at the list. They've got quality across the park. Aliir is back in. He isn't quite the same just yet.
No.
Dixon's going to come in the next few weeks. I mean, we know what it's like to lose one of our best defenders in Marchbank and one of our best forwards in Charlie Curnow for a long period of time. Like, it affects everyone. So I don't know. Are they going to be a premiership threat? I don't think so, but I still think they're going to be, one of the teams that's pushing. Oh, they can. They need to really get a wriggle on and win.
Well, they're 3-5. I'm not quite sure who they have in the next couple of weeks.
That's not bad.
Say they win the next 2 weeks, 5-5 with half the season left. It's all to play for. They've got North, they'll win that, and Geelong in Geelong. All right, maybe they'll be a bit harder. But say 10 rounds in this 4 and 6. I mean, teams have made finals from worse.
That's winnable. I mean, Sydney were 0-6 in 2017.
I think it was
17. Played finals. I think because we have such a big layoff in the off season, and then we get to the season, and we're so quick to want to know what the storylines of the year are going to be.
Yeah.
When we see 0-5, it's like, how easy is this? We've got one already. Port Adelaide gone.
Yeah.
Just watching Ken Hinkley on 360 on Monday night, just the way he's just cool, calm, and collected. Been around the traps for many, many years, and this is why it's important to have a really senior coach who has experience. And this is the danger of getting an inexperienced coach who's never gone through. Like, Ken Hinkley's been through a lot in his
Yeah.
time as a coach, as an assistant coach, and as a player. I've seen a lot of footy. It's really, really impressive to see how he's just conducted himself and handled that expectation and, the fire. And, Port Adelaide are a proud club. They are a great, proud club. And yeah, I think them. The other one is the Giants. Like, I don't know. I think they're different because I look at the Giants. I don't want to talk too soon because we play them this week, but they look fractured. They look disjointed.
It's a different feeling, isn't it?
Yep.
It's a different feeling, and I think maybe it's what we talked about before. Port Adelaide, real rich history. You can't see Port Adelaide lying down and kind of putting the season on the shelf and not thinking about it and moving on, because that's not what their DNA says that they will do. Whereas the Giants, I mean, they've been around for a decade. They haven't been able to show from a sustained period what they're about. So maybe there's something to do with that. Do you reckon there is?
The Giants are one of the most frustrating teams because I get sucked into them every week. Tipped them last week. You look at them on paper and you're like, oh my God, it's one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, they've probably got one of the maybe the most A graders in the league, or one of the most.
Yeah,
look Whitfield, Taranto, Kelly, Green, they're just four off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more that I missed. There's stars in that team.
Yeah, it goes to show, if you're not playing as a unit, and I think there's a bit of, sorry to go off topic, but the whole Leon Cameron situation, really weird. He was in line for an extension, then they pulled it back, and it's like, wait, is he gone? Because if he's gone, then we look at a David Teague situation at Carlton, maybe, where you kind of know that he's not going to be there deep down as a player. Are you fully invested in what's going on? Are you fully behind? It's really weird. You got Bobby Hill who requests a trade. There's just little things that I've noticed where I say, okay, maybe they're disjointed, whereas I never felt that with Port Adelaide. I just felt that they were missing some of their best players and they had a poor start.
Yeah. I mean, Port are 3-5. The Giants are 2-6. And it seems like they're worlds apart based on the optimism and what people think that they could do this season. It literally seems like the Porter, 4-4 or whatever, or equal ledger, and the Giants haven't won a game based on the feeling around their club.
Yeah.
Let's just go back to Port Adelaide just ever so quickly. I want to speak about the forward line as well, because I was listening to AFL Exchange just in the car before, and I think it was Cal Toomey brought up their forward line. Is it one of the more underrated forward lines in the comp? Because you have Todd Marshall, Georgiades, Finlayson, with Fantasia to come back, Robbie Gray, and then Charlie Dixon to come back as well. Are we sleeping on their forward line a bit?
Maybe. I just think I think they're a good forward line. I don't think they're this crazy out of this world forward line just yet. I don't know. I think they're a top 5 or 6 forward 6.
But would that not mean that we're underrating them because of especially in the first 5 weeks? I mean, we spoke about, did we overreact to the start of the season? Everyone was like, oh, without Charlie Dixon, where the goals going to come from? Finlayson wasn't playing well. Marshall had a form slump. Georgiades wasn't hitting the ground running. Robbie Gray was injured. Obviously, Fantasia missed as well. So now, are we starting to come to realise how much star power they've got and how much goals they have in them?
No, because I don't know of anyone that doesn't rate the forward line. I rate their forward line. In order to underrate, you need to not.
Okay, when we versed them early in the season, were you worried at all about them kicking goal?
Of course.
Really?
I thought they would stretch our defenders because they had more extra tools. Okay. Even though Dixon didn't play, if Dixon plays, it's a worry, absolutely, because that's another tool. Jacob will probably take Dixon, and then you got Young that'll go to in whatever case, whether it be Marshall or Finlayson if he's playing, and then you got Georgiades. Like they got like a up. I think they got like a up and coming great forward line, as opposed
Yeah.
to a forward line that in 2022 will be one of the best forward lines. I think over the next couple of seasons, once Georgiades and Marshall sort of take over as like the leaders of that forward line, I think that is when it's scary, really scary.
Yeah. Because you have some young players as well coming through
Yeah.
besides them. So, yeah, I mean, I do think that their forward line is maybe not underrated, but underappreciated. Maybe I feel like there's more forward lines that have been given the spotlight, whereas we're just sleeping on their ability to score goals ever so slightly.
I'm
But
just glad we've played them already, and we don't have to
yeah,
play them
same.
in Adelaide, because like playing them in Adelaide is
Scary.
almost the equivalent of going to West Coast back in the day now and
Oh
playing
yeah,
them over in Perth.
yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. We sort of played them back into form.
That's what we do.
That's what we do, but we played them into form and we won as well. So it's, I mean, for you, it's a double positive.
Port Adelaide aggression, mate.
Right, you should get rid of that poster and just hang one of their tops up. Get the
Port
prison
Adelaide
bars up.
abroad. I think the pair wouldn't appreciate that.
Yeah, Anthony might have some words about that one.
Yeah.
Maybe we can join the channels for you.
No.
Thoughts? No.
I do it my way.
Do your way. Right. Okay. All right. Let's come back home and let's talk about the best side in the past half a decade in Richmond. And I've just put down a question: do they have one more premiership in them? Do they have the Last Dance style, riding off into the sunset with the aging veterans? As much as I don't really like them, it would be a pretty good story, wouldn't it?
Of course, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great for the gap. I don't think so. If I had to guess, yes or no, do they have another premiership with this group? I would say no, but I say it. I don't say it easily. Yeah, like it's, mate. It's Richmond. You always give that respect. I just think at the end of the day, Melbourne at the MCG on Grand Final day is like they're at the peak of their powers. They're kind of where Richmond were in 2019.
Yeah, but my theory is you don't want to play Richmond in the finals.
Fair.
They're the team you want to avoid. I genuinely think if they're in the 8, they're top 3 favourites to win the grand final, regardless of where they finish.
That's fair. That's fair enough, especially when Dusty's playing. Dusty on grand final day.
Dusty in the finals. He'll win you a game in the midfield and in the forward line. I mean, we spoke about it a couple of episodes ago.
You make a really good point. You do. You make a really good point. If any team is playing in the finals, and let's say Richmond scrape in and finish 8th, you don't want to play them.
Yeah, you'd rather finish like lower down to avoid them. 100%, in my opinion, because
we could be playing them in round 1 of the finals again, mate.
Oh, imagine that. That's 120,000 at the G.
It's crazy what that'll be.
No, I'd never want to think about that because for me, it only ends one way in my head because I'm the perennial pessimist. Dusty kicks 10 and we capitulate, but mate, hopefully not.
You've turned 18. You've gotten all senile on me. Come on, mate. Where's the optimism?
Sorry. I'm now, as my papa said, I've yet us up, which means I've gotten old. I've gotten old and I've gotten cynical. I've gotten all this stuff. Yeah.
It's all over. It's all downhill.
There you go. So we're going to move on now to the moment of the round. Slightly short episode this week, but it's all right. Short and snappy, short and sharp. Mm-hmm. And it is what we touched on just before. It was Dustin Martin returning to the game on the MCG stage, kicking 2, I think he had, and just showing us all what we missed. It was good to see. I watched it, and as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Dusty because he's killed us every time we play him, it was good to see him back out on the G and doing what he does best.
Isn't it funny what a player can do for a team's identity?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think on a much smaller scale, I think Toby Green does it for the Giants, even though we've just spoken about how disjointed they are. I almost think Charlie Curnow does it for Carlton. just gives us a bit of spunk and a bit of, I don't know. There's just something else. The different energy that it gives the team.
Is a crowd lifter. I feel
Yeah.
like when Charlie kicks a goal, different to when any other player kicks a goal.
100%.
Even Harry, even Cripper. I mean, Harry won the Coleman last year, but he never really was able to get the crowd and just have them in the palm of his hand. Whereas Kerno does that regardless of the game, regardless of the situation, rather. I think
Spot on.
Dusty, that is what typifies Dusty.
I think Charlie Dixon is that for Port Adelaide. I don't think they're the same team when he's not in it. I mean,
I feel like
not.
he's more of like a barometer, though. Like
yes, yeah.
He's that standard of like everything, of intensity, of quality, of everything. I do agree in that sense.
Yeah, it's good to have Dusty back into the game. Yeah. He's good for the game. And they're Richmond when he's there, and they're not when he's not. It is different.
Yeah, he was the one that. I mean, he was the one that started it's almost as if he was the act one to their dynasty. It was when he broke it onto the scene. I know he was very good in the seasons before, but in 2017, when he broke out in those first couple of rounds, it just set everything up.
Question: do Richmond win 3 flags if he doesn't exist?
They don't win a flag if he doesn't exist.
Right? I think so too.
They don't. No chance. Because they had the game plan, but the game plan doesn't work without him, I don't think. I just think he was so integral and just so... the intangibles were just so, like, critical to their success. I don't think he wins a flag if he doesn't exist.
No,
I mean, it was that... What was it? That Jordan McMahon kick in, like, 08, wasn't it? Where Richmond moved up the order, picked Dusty, whereas the D's picked, who was it, Scully and Trengove, it would have been.
They had picked 1 and 3. They had picked 1 and 2. Oh, my God. Yeah. Oh, my God. And
Dusty went at 3.
They passed up on Dusty. But you know what? Dusty, I don't think it makes sense for Dusty to play for Melbourne.
No, definitely not. Because, well, that was one of the reasons why he went down, was because he wasn't the ultimate professional, let's put it that way, in his younger years. But it's just funny how life turns out.
It is funny, I mean, look, the D's have done well ever since. Petrarca probably fits the Melbourne mold a bit more. Went to a good school down in the upper echelon at Melbourne. So
very, very clean cut.
Yes.
Whereas, I do think it is the right fit. I do think it is the right fit for both players. But it's funny how the draft can throw up some weird scenarios. Obviously, the one that comes to my head was Dom Rashid getting a pick after Collingwood by West Coast in 2013, I think it was. So
yeah,
there you go. There's just little things that we like. I feel like we're gonna see it like now, maybe like Jesse in 5 years' time. Jesse Motlop kicks the winner on grand final day, and the player gets picked before, and we beat their team. Hopefully.
That's what I'm talking about, Ari. Look at you, mate.
There we go. I'm growing up. Optimistic. There we go. So what are you talking? 10 goal win against the Giants on the weekend, or
just win? Just win by 1. Just win. Just take the 4 points and get the job done, and just get one more win closer to 12.
And that's why I didn't want to speak about him, because I said Matt Taberner wouldn't get a kick against Jacob Wiedering, where that was fact, but we did get pumped. So
yes,
I'll just stay quiet about who we're versing the week after, unless it's Collingwood, and then it's young for
we've got a very, very interesting 3-week block coming up, or 3-round block, when we play Collingwood, Essendon, Richmond. So just stand by, because a lot's going to go down.
A lot, and there's going to be some choice words to be had, I'm pretty sure, both before and after the fact.
I think you're right.
It's going to be good fun. All right. Unless there's anything else you want to speak about.
Yes, actually, there is. I just want to talk about the trial by media that we have at the moment in the AFL.
Okay.
It's so interesting to me. And I'm using the example of, like, Patrick Cripps was cited for a dangerous tackle on, was it Lockie Murphy?
Yes.
So whatever, it was thrown out. But you've got journos like Mitch Cleary and John Ralph who will point out not the most serious case from the round, but they'll point out something that, like, they didn't point out the hit on Jordan Boyd, but they pointed out the tackle that Cripps made. And it's irritating because these are people of influence, whether we want to admit it or not. They are people of influence, and they are using their influence in a way which is, it's not impartial. And I thought that journos are meant to be impartial. But at the same time, such is the world. It's not fair. So stop crying about it. All good. Just build a bigger fan channel, and eventually we'll run the narrative. So
Yeah,
just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, well, I am a big fan of Mitch Cleary. I feel like he's
Same. I thought it was off-brand.
Yeah, he's one of the best, if not the best in the business.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
And I saw that tweet. I was like, that's off-brand and that's poor form, because let's just say he got suspended. Let's just say he does not get suspended if they don't point it out, and that's not what the MRO is there to do. The MRO is to point out what's obviously happened. Obviously, unless someone's been king hit off the ball, which like one person sees, fine, fair enough, right? But for something which got no, like the commentary didn't mention it, no fans mentioned it. I saw nothing about it.
That's the part. That's the part where I'm bringing it up, because it was a non-event. It was a non-issue. Like the gaff hit on Andrew Brayshaw years ago was clearly something where it's like, oh, okay, that was really bad. You know, you got to talk about it in the media. You know, it's going to go to the tribunal, but it's very clear that something really bad had happened. But I didn't like that. Cripps tackle was not in the same light of an action.
Yeah.
Like the Nick Larkey, Nick Larkey back on the agenda.
Yeah.
That didn't even...
Get the clip. Come on.
You know what? I'm going to fucking get the clip out, because the Nick Larkey tunnel vision did not get a run.
No.
You know?
Not even...
Knowing that their history hasn't been all that flash.
It didn't get a run. It didn't get didn't get spoken about in the manner in which it should have.
Definitely
so it irritates me. But
and also, just slightly, if Patrick Cripps doesn't have the start of the season that he has and isn't winning the Brownlow with 8 rounds played, that doesn't get spoken about.
Yeah.
Because then the narrative is, oh, Brownlow fancy, Patrick Cripps ruled out, and then bang, clicks. Like, it's... Like I said, I rate Mitch Cleary so highly, and when I saw that, I was like, "Oh no, that's."
I think,
like, I expect that from John Ralph, like, full due respect, and I respect that from some others in the media, but not Mitch Cleary.
My read on the play is the mainstream media are getting really desperate because, and I've said this for years, it's changing. It's all changing. We don't need to go to the mainstream media anymore to get information about what's going on with our football clubs. Behaviors are changing. You have it on demand. You have a fan channel for Carlton. You have many podcasts for Carlton. You don't need the mainstream media like you used to need them. You don't need I don't need to hear what David King thinks about Carlton. I don't care. I love David King. I respect him, but his opinion on Carlton is flawed because he doesn't watch them every week like what we do.
Yeah.
You know? So
and he's not honest like we are.
Yeah.
Because he has people in his ear telling him you can't say this, you can't say that.
Correct. And I just think the mainstream media is it's just starting to reek of desperation for clicks and all of that. And that is a sign of things that are falling down. And they need to rejig the puzzle, and they need to rejig the way they do it. And until then, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at stuff like AFL 360, right? Carlton gets spoken about for, 5 minutes, if that? Whereas you have the show on Monday, you have the fan cams, you have your review, player ratings, hours of content.
Hours of
Hours.
content. Yep.
Whereas I'm not sitting down at 10:30 to watch Footy Classified, hoping that they speak about Carlton for 3 minutes,
Correct.
and then having to watch through all their dribble for the rest of it.
Mhm.
It's changing, and we spoke about it with Palm a little bit last week. They need to start adapting. The media needs to start adapting, and traditional media and TV need to start adapting because it's not what it used to be even 10 years ago. We've
It's
seen the biggest
beautiful.
change. We've seen the biggest change, like the change from 2010 to 2000 was nothing to what it has been from 2010 to 2020.
100%.
It's been so different.
Yeah. Even just go pre-COVID, before COVID,
Yeah.
and what we were doing in terms of watching content and how we watch it now, it's totally changed in 3 years. So
Yeah. Change for the better, I reckon.
Of course.
All right, now we're done. Unless the lights at Marvel all good this week.
Oh, wow, you're running with that again.
I am, because it's
struggling for content, mate. Struggling for news.
Says the one that's brought up Nick Larkey for what,
Let's-
the past 3 weeks?
Let's talk about Arsenal and Chelsea and the top 4 race.
Let's do that. All right, let's start a podcast. Chelsea and that'll go down well. All right, what? You're 1 point behind us, and you're going to finish 4th. Congrats.
Yes. No, well, in all seriousness, can we give the Two-Footed Tackle podcast a bit of a plug? Or
Yeah, so if you want to hear me speak about the round ball for 40 minutes a week, Two-Footed Tackle podcast on YouTube and then on all the socials as well. Yeah, it would be good if you could just some love. Getting around it would mean the world to me.
Get around the
around
Two-Footed Tackle. It's a good name. I really like the name, I must say.
I was debating between that and the Sunday League podcast.
Two-Footed Tackle, mate. Fucking love it. You're right in there.
Well, that suits the way I played my soccer, so I thought it fit me perfectly because I'm obviously cynical. I've turned 18 and I've become cynical. So
Ari the Enforcer, I like it.
Enforcer, mate. 5'6" of mate. You don't want to get in the way of me. All right. I think we're done now. We've talked enough dribble. Thank you all very much for watching another episode of The Rest. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below and go the Blues.